When you see an insect, how do you feel? Some people think that insects are scary and ugly. Today we will show you about some common insects. It's important to appreciate and assist the insects in our ecosystem, because if you know more about them, you are less likely to harm them. The first reason insects are important is for pollination of the food we eat.
Pollination is the transport of pollen from one flower to another. Each flower is designed specifically for insects to obtain pollen. The bumblebee is flying around the daisies that weave in and out of tall grass. It will land on the flower that is shaped as a landing pad or umbrella. Jewelweed is an example of a bell-shaped flower. Insects must crawl inside the opening to get the nectar. The pollen is all inside the flower, so the insects get covered in. A third example of different types of pollination is the mint plant. The pollen is attached to the little bits protruding from the long stem like little bells. It is extremely sticky, as well as having hairs from the insect to stick to it. Pollination is extremely important because without it there would be no plant-based foods for humans to eat. Next, let's take a look at the physical adaptation that all insects have in common. Every insect has a different life cycle. There are two major types of life cycles, simple and complete. Let's compare them. The simple life cycle of a Carolina grasshopper includes 3 stages: egg, nymph, and adult. The nymph looks like an adult, however, it is much smaller. Isn't it interesting to know that the grasshopper creates egg pods that hold up to 150 eggs? The life cycle of the yellow jacket is different from the Carolina grasshopper. It has 4 stages: egg, larva, pupa, and adult. This means that the insect goes through a complete metamorphosis. The eggs are maple colored and the queen can lay up to 1,000 eggs in a day. Every insect has a head, thorax, abdomen, and 6 jointed legs. One of the reasons that so many species of insects can share their living environment with other insects is because of the insect's individual physical characteristics. For example, the legs of insects. All insect legs have femurs, tibias, and tarsals. The widow skimmer's legs have spiny-like hairs on tarsals to grip and stick to plants. The red admiral butterfly has legs with slender tibias designed for perching and walking on blossoms. Insects take a long time to evolve adaptations to an environment and the plants native to it. Insects have also evolved to relationships to specific plants in their habitat. This means that some insects will refuse to interact with certain plants for food and shelter. Every animal gets its energy and nutrients from plants, or gets energy from an animal that consumes plants. The milkweed tussock moth is an example of an insect that eats plants to get energy and nutrients. Insects help pass that energy from plants to animals, and are important to a healthy ecosystem because many animals depend on insects for food. If we lose insects, then the ecosystem could be destroyed and many animals could die in the process. For example, 96% of all terrestrial birds need insects to live a healthy life, and removing those insects from the ecosystem could be disastrous for the birds. In addition, every insect involved with and can digest only certain plants. Native plants are plants that have been here since before human settlers have arrived and that are in balance with the other species in the ecosystem. Invasive plants are plants that have been here for only a short amount of time and they take over the environment when they are introduced. These plants have a negative impact on the surrounding ecology. Insects need native plants for food and shelter. Modern-day humans have filled 95% of the natural land with cities, farms, and suburbs. If we plant native plants all around our yards, then we can return a few habitats to insects and their predators. We can bring back the biodiversity that causes our ecosystems to thrive. The widow skimmer needs to eat insects that have eaten native plants for nutrients. In addition to habitat loss, another insect challenge is climate change. Could you imagine a world without insects? If climate change keeps on going the way it is now, it may result in the end of insects. Climate is the average temperature in a large area or region over time, and so climate change is the altering of climate. For example, a place which is cold most of the time, such as Antarctica, can warm up, causing polar ice caps to melt and affect the surrounding animals as well. Red admiral butterflies are struggling because of the climate change. Climate change is causing extreme summer rain. This frequent and harsh weather is wiping out a large amount of butterflies. Insects that have a close connection to specific plants are the ones that may face more problems in a changing climate. They can also be affected by the rapid rising of sea levels. Widow skimmers can be affected by climate change in many ways, but one is that they need lily pads and other aquatic plants to lay their eggs on. If those plants become submerged in water, the widow skimmers can't lay their eggs, so they will try to lay them on uninhabitable or invasive plants that the eggs will dry up on. From a different point of view, An insect that lays its eggs on land-dwelling plants has a higher chance of surviving. What we need to do is try not to burn fossil fuels, to buy local products that don't make a large carbon footprint, and to buy fewer factory-made products. Try using solar panels on your house, or eating local foods, and stopping factories from letting out an extreme amount of carbon emissions. Climate change affects most of the world's animals, and without their correct habitats, they will die unless we try to make a difference.
Humans cannot live on planet Earth as the only existing species. This is because we rely on other species, such as insects, to produce or pollinate our food. If we choose to share our land with insects now, we should be able to save a lot of the biodiversity. Here are 3 ways you can help insects in your own backyard. Don't rake up all the leaves in autumn. Insects use leaves for food and shelter during the winter. Grow native plants like goldenrod and oak trees for pollinators and other insects. Not only does this help the insects, it also helps other species such as squirrels and birds. Use beneficial insects to control pests rather than dangerous chemicals, pesticides that kill helpful insects.